You are doing something right now that no other creature on Earth has ever figured out. Not language, not tools, not society. Cooking. Every other animal on the planet eats its food raw, exactly as it comes. You are the only species that deliberately transforms food with heat before eating it. And this one habit, which your ancestors started doing somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, may have done more to shape the brain inside your skull than almost anything else in evolutionary history, including possibly the ability to think this thought right now. To understand how fire and food rewired the human species, we need to untangle 5 things. What cooking actually does to food at the molecular level, the hypothesis that changed how scientists think about brain evolution, what happened to every other ape that didn't discover fire, why cooking may have restructured human society from the ground up, and what this means for the brain you're running today. Let's go. Here's the number that reframes everything. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, sharing roughly 98.7% of our DNA, spends about 6 hours a day chewing. 6 hours. Just chewing. Raw food is dense, fibrous, and hard to break down, so the body has to work for every calorie it can extract. A chimp's gut is massive relative to its body size because processing raw food requires a long, heavy digestive system running at near constant capacity. Humans spend about 1 hour a day chewing, and our gut, relative to body size, is dramatically smaller than a chimp's, smaller than you'd predict for a primate of our size. We freed up 5 hours a day and redirected enormous biological resources away from digestion. The question is, where did those resources go? Because something had to absorb them. And what absorbed them changed everything. In 1999, a primatologist named Richard Wrangham published a hypothesis that most of the scientific community initially resisted, and that subsequent research has largely confirmed. The cooking hypothesis. The idea that the discovery of fire and cooked food wasn't just a convenience that made life easier. It was the trigger for a cascade of biological changes that produced the modern human brain. Here's the mechanism. Cooking does something fundamental to food before it ever enters your body. It breaks down the cellular structure of plants and denatures proteins in meat, making the calories inside dramatically more accessible. The same piece of meat, cooked versus raw, yields meaningfully more usable energy. Some studies suggest the difference is significant enough to matter at an evolutionary scale. You get more out of the same food, with less digestive work. That shift had consequences that compounded over generations. A body that needs less gut to process its food can redirect the biological resources, blood supply, cellular energy, metabolic budget, that would have gone to digestion. And the organ those resources went to, in the human lineage, was the brain. The human brain is extraordinarily expensive. It makes up roughly 2% of your body weight, but consumes about 20% of your total energy. No other organ comes close to that ratio. For most of evolutionary history, building a bigger brain was a bad trade. The metabolic cost was too high. But once cooking started delivering more usable calories from the same food, the energy budget for a larger brain became available in a way it hadn't been before. Wrangham's argument, supported by the fossil record, is that the timing lines up. The transition from earlier hominids to Homo erectus, the first ancestor that looks meaningfully more like us, with a significantly larger brain, smaller teeth, smaller gut, and longer legs built for endurance, corresponds roughly to the period when evidence of fire use begins appearing in the archaeological record. The biology changed when the cooking started. Somewhere back there, one of your ancestors held raw meat near a flame, thought, that smells better, made a decision, and accidentally started the chain of events that produced you sitting here, capable of understanding what happened. The teeth tell the same story. Compared to earlier hominids and to other apes, humans have remarkably small teeth. We don't need the grinding equipment our ancestors had because our food arrives at the mouth already partially broken down. A chimpanzee with human-sized teeth would starve. A human with chimp-sized teeth would be carrying equipment it no longer needs. We are, at the biological level, animals that evolved specifically around cooked food. Raw food is not our default. It is, in a very real sense, a diet our bodies were not designed for. But cooking didn't just change the body. The moment food started requiring fire, something happened to human social life that had no precedent in the animal kingdom. Here's the thing about fire that's easy to miss. You can't own it. A kill can be grabbed and run off with. A fruit tree can be guarded. But a fire in the middle of camp is shared by everyone near it, and the food cooking on it is visible to every member of the group. This created a social problem that had never existed before. How do you decide who gets what when the cooking is communal and the result is right there in front of everyone? Wrangham argues that this is part of what drove early human pair bonding, the formation of committed male-female partnerships, specifically around the sharing of cooked food. The cooking fire didn't just feed the body. It may have been one of the first forcing functions for human-scale social cooperation. Fire didn't just cook food, it cooked the first social contract. The social consequences of cooking run deeper than pair bonding. Think about what a campfire around food actually creates. A fixed location where the group gathers at predictable times. A period of waiting. Food takes time to cook. Where members of the group are together with nothing immediately demanding their attention. And a shared resource that requires coordination to distribute fairly. This is, in structure, a meeting. Humans around a cooking fire are doing something no other animal does, gathering at a scheduled time in a fixed place to share resources according to social rules. Anthropologists have argued that the cooking fire is one of the earliest versions of what we now call a home, a center of gravity for a social group. And the waiting matters more than it might seem. When food doesn't require immediate consumption, when you can cook it, let it sit, distribute it deliberately, you get the conditions for planning, for delayed gratification, for the kind of thinking that extends beyond the immediate moment. Raw food eaters have to eat when they find food, or compete for it immediately. Cooked food eaters can decide who gets what, when, and how much. That decision-making is a form of social cognition that raw food never demanded. There's also the night to consider. Fire does something beyond cooking. It extends the day. Before fire, darkness meant sleep or extreme vulnerability. Predators operate well in the dark, early hominids didn't. Fire pushed back the night, creating hours of relative safety around a light source. Hours that could be filled with something other than sleep or fear. Researchers have speculated, and there's ethnographic evidence from modern hunter-gatherer groups to support this, that nighttime fire-sitting is when early humans told stories. Not as entertainment, but as information transfer. Who did what? Where food was found? What dangers were spotted? What the group's norms were? The fire circle may be one of the original classrooms. Language, memory, cultural transmission, all of these may have developed in part because cooking gave humans a reason to sit still together in the dark. Somewhere in evolutionary history, the question, "What's for dinner?" stopped being about survival and started being the thing humans talked about while they waited for dinner. Progress. The modern version of this is sitting in your kitchen while something cooks, talking to the people around you, or eating together at a table, or gathering at a restaurant. The specifics changed. The structure of fire, food, people, conversations has been running for 1,000,000 years. You didn't inherit cooking from your culture. Your culture, in a meaningful sense, emerged from cooking. Step back, and what looks like a practical habit turns into something closer to a founding event. Cooking delivered the energy that built the brain you're thinking with right now. It restructured the body. Smaller gut, smaller teeth, more efficient digestion, specifically around transformed food. It created the social architecture of the campfire, the fixed meeting place, the shared resource, the waiting that became conversation, the night that became story. It may have driven pair bonding, cooperation, and the earliest forms of cultural transmission. Every meal you eat cooked is, in a quiet way, a link in a chain that goes back 1,000,000 years. The kitchen is not a modern invention. It is the oldest human institution, and the brain that resulted from all of that cooking, the one that needs 20% of your energy, that fills the time waiting for food with language and planning and story, is the same brain that sometimes can't stop comparing itself to everyone around it. Because that brain was never just built for cooking, it was built for the group around the fire. Here's the one thing. The next time you eat alone, at your desk, in front of a screen, standing over the sink, notice what's missing, not nutrition. The calories are the same. What's missing is the context the brain was built to expect around food. Other people, a fixed moment, shared time. Research on eating behavior consistently finds that people who eat with others report higher satisfaction from the same meal, eat more mindfully, and feel more connected afterward. Your brain wasn't just built to process cooked food, it was built to process cooked food in company. You don't have to restructure your life around this, but once a week, deliberately, cook something and eat it with someone. No phones on the table, let the meal take as long as it takes. You're not just having dinner. You're running the oldest social software humans ever wrote. It still works. And if the idea that your brain was shaped by something as simple as fire and food feels strange, wait until you hear what your brain does when the fire goes out and you're completely alone in the dark. Why humans are the only animal that's genuinely terrified of the dark, and why that fear never fully goes away, is the next one.